to Just Minding My Business Radio, where we are moving at the speed of God, learning what we didn't know we didn't know. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
So grab a pen and paper and get ready for information that you can use. Welcome to Just Minding My Business. Blessings to you and yours. Coming to the mic today is Victoria Shaw, who is a licensed professional counselor and spiritual coach who combines her background and training in psychology and counseling with her intuitive gift to help clients heal, grow, and realize their spiritual and full personal potential. She takes a holistic approach to counseling, addressing clients' concerns on the mind, body, spiritual levels. She especially loves working with people who are committed to using their struggles and life experiences to fuel their own spiritual awakening. Victoria is the author of 4 self-help books for parents, children, and teens, and the mother of 2 spirited now adult children. Well, welcome, Victoria. We are so happy to have you.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Glad to have you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So tell us, how did you arrive to where you are now?
How did I arrive to where I am now? Well, the story goes back, it goes, probably back to birth for all of us. But for me, I was originally a research psychologist. And so I've always been fascinated by the mind and consciousness and reasoning and all those big, juicy questions. And what I didn't really love, as it turned out, was doing research. So I got my PhD and I did my postdoctoral research, and I realized that I was not following my passion, and I took some time off to have kids and write some books. So I did my writing, and when my kids were, I want to say maybe 8, getting a little bit older, we made a move from New York City to Connecticut. And when we moved to the country, where I live in Connecticut, we're about an hour outside the city, but it's quiet, it's country. Mm-hmm. And when I moved back into that sort of quiet, slower pace, and I also at the same time deepened my meditation practice, something really remarkable happened. I started to tap in again to my intuition. And it was something that I think I've had since I was a child, but hadn't really, like many people, just had kind of forgotten about it and hadn't really had it nurtured, throughout my life. And as I started to do that, I really, a lot opened up and changed for me. I did a lot of my own personal development work and healing work. And then I also started to feel like a call to service and a call to do something, to use my gifts to help others. And so I went back to school and I got my master's of counseling, and I put those 2 things together now and have been doing this now for over 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's remarkable. So tell us, what does your client base look like? Tell us about the people you serve.
I work with pretty much everyone from little kiddos 3 and up all the way to, as old as you want to be. I think my most common clients are probably children and parents that want to, do their own personal development work through the parenting experience, because that was a big piece for me. A lot of my struggles had to do with parenting. And as my kids struggled, I really had to look inside and say, what am I bringing to the table, both as a person, as a parent, and where do I want to grow and transform so I can help my kids? And so I still get a lot of parents that are really using that parenting journey as their own personal and spiritual development. So that's always really fun. But really anybody who is open to tapping into their intuition, is open to taking that sort of more broader spiritual approach to life. Anyone who wants to, is interested in taking those day-to-day struggles of life and understanding them in that wider context and using that to fuel your own spiritual and personal growth, those are the people that usually find their way into my office.
You spoke about intuition, even having that as a child.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's a topic that's coming up a lot you see a lot more about it now. People are talking about it. So
Yes.
what was it like for you as a child? And the second part of that is, when did you decide to ignore it?
That's such a good question. I don't remember when I decided to ignore it. I think a lot of us sort of go underground because most kids are born intuitive. And so intuition is the way that I look at it. It's like your connection to your higher self or your spiritual self. And it's that innate knowing that we all have, that you know things without knowing why you know them. It's not your logical mind. It's not what you learned in school. It's that gut feeling. And everybody has it. But we don't live in a society that values or honors it or teaches us how to tune into it. And so for many of us, by the time we reach 6 or 7 years old, we've forgotten it was even there.
Exactly.
And I can look back in my childhood and even my teen years, pretty much all the way through, and tell you experiences I had that were clearly my intuition. So it didn't go away completely for me. And I've always been an intuitive empath. So that's somebody who feels other people's feelings like it's happening to them. And that's probably the most common form of intuition that's out there for people. And it's awakening much, much more for people now, especially even right now with what's happening on our planet with the epidemic or the pandemic. I think a lot of people are really feeling that, in themselves as well, even if they're not personally being impacted. But I think that was always active for me. So I would always sort of know what people were feeling, even if they didn't know or they didn't really tell me. And sometimes I would also be able to read people and have an idea of, what was going on inside, sometimes below the level of consciousness. And as a kid, I remember people always saying to me, like, you're really insightful for a 7-year-old, or a 10-year-old. And I realized looking back, that was my intuition. And that's sort of my special gift. And we all have different gifts.
Right. I think that's very interesting because, like at 7 years old, you kind of remember different things that came up. And we used to say that that child was born old.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what they were talking about. This child was very intuitive, way beyond their years.
Right.
And that intuition is so important to every child. And like you said, I totally agree that we're born with it. And then somewhere along the line, we get talked out of it.
Bingo.
Can we talk a little bit about how to reintroduce that to and encourage it in our children?
Absolutely.
And people in general. But
I love that question. And I think, first of all, in the 10 years that I've been practicing, I've seen a huge shift in just the openness to all of these things. And in fact, when I first started practicing, so I was doing the intuitive work a couple years before I got my counseling degree. But when I first got my counseling degree in 2011, and I was trying to look for a job, I remember asking one of my teachers, I don't know how to do this. Am I going to do two separate things? Am I going to put these things together? And I remember her telling me, she gave me a year. I think it was like 2015, 2016, but she gave me a year and she said, that year, the world will be ready for you. The world hasn't caught up. So that's when you'll bring your two things together. And I remember it just still sticks with me because I've really seen it just in the short time I've been practicing, the world catching up. And so many more people are open to this. Mm-hmm. And I have so many more parents that recognize their kids are intuitive and are asking the same questions that you are. Like, how do we help them? How do I support them? And I love that because, when the parents are on board and everyone's speaking the same language, we have so much power to help kids maintain that connection to their inner selves and their highest wisdom all the way through lives, and can save us all a lot of grief. So it's beautiful. Sure. So some tips I usually give parents are, have a language for intuition, if it's your vibes or your special feeling, but talk about it and in kid appropriate ways so that they have a language to express what they're experiencing. Don't make a huge deal about it, because I do have some parents that are like, my kid is so intuitive and they're like so gifted, and like, don't go there, because that of course puts pressure on your child and it turns something that's so natural and normal and beautiful into something, that they have to, becomes part of their ego rather than part of their spiritual self.
Exactly. And that is probably the danger.
It can. Yeah, just normalize it. It's a normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't, Ida, did you want to jump in?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just thinking, as you said that about being intuitive, I know there was a time as a child, there were a couple of situations that I can remember. Um, but one of the most powerful, I was sent outside to rake leaves. I had probably about 7, 8 years old, and I was sent out to rake leaves. And of course, I decided I was going to keep one pile just to play in. And it was a gorgeous day in October. It was absolutely one of those absolutely perfect days.
Right.
Blue skies, big puffy clouds. And I remember climbing into the leaves. And I was just lying there listening to the crinkle. And at that time, people were still burning leaves. So you had all these wonderful aromas around.
Wow.
And I was looking up at the sky and I just got giggly inside. And I said, I don't know who did all this, but that whoever it is has to be wonderful.
Oh.
That stayed with me. And again, I pushed it aside for many years, but then it was like, that was your recognition of a higher power.
Absolutely.
And your connection to it. Because I just got absolutely giggly. I still can remember the feeling.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, and a lot of kids have that, and then we teach them out of it.
Yep.
We teach them out of it. It's like, no, that can't possibly be. This is the way you have to think. This is the way you have to feel.
Yeah.
I like to think that's changing, but it's true. And kids are magical and they have those magical experiences. And I think once you've had one of those too, it's like a touchstone for your whole life. So just like you're saying, even though you kind of forgot, you didn't, it's still there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It lights me up.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just like Ruth, I can remember every day my mom used to make me take a nap. And whether I was sleepy or not, I had to take a nap.
Right.
So what I did, I would make characters out of the clouds. Just make pictures out of the clouds until I fell asleep. And I still remember that to this day. Laying in bed, just, that looks like a dog, or that looks like
turtle. Yeah.
So it's a wonderful thing for what you're doing to help the parents keep their kids into who they are.
Yeah.
That's really important, so important.
Well, I think what happens too is, society, we all get indoctrinated into this society that tells us what's important and what's valuable. And then, of course, we want to help our kids follow those rules so that they can be happy. But oftentimes that's not where happiness is, right? Happiness is in you and following your own, being your authentic self and following your own unique joy. And I hope more and more we're teaching our kids to do that. And modeling that for our kids. But a lot of times we don't, because we live in so much fear that, we use fear to guide our kids. You have to do this and you have to do that and you have to avoid this and they lose themselves.
Right.
And and they lose their authentic selves and that connection to the things that do light their fires and actually do bring them joy. And and you both know this, when you follow the things that bring you joy, that's where you connect with your spiritual path. And that's where you actually end up not just doing the things that make you happy, but also doing the things that your soul and your spirit wants you to be doing here on earth. So it's a win-win.
Yes.
Really a presence here on the earth rather than just something stuck on the earth.
Right.
Almost
Exactly.
being a robot.
Exactly. And I help parents too, because I think a lot of times too, I always say our kids are genetically engineered to push our buttons. Because they are, and I'm the mother of two, and I can tell you they still sometimes do. But that's good because I've worked on those buttons. But I think it's really important too as a parent and it's something our society does not support us in doing, but it's so important. You have to see your kids as unique human beings, as spiritual beings and human beings with a unique path. And our job is not to stick them on the path that we think that they should be on, or what will make us happy or what we've been taught, but to support them in whatever their path is. And sometimes, kids learn the hard way, and sometimes things don't look on paper like they're so successful.
Right.
But it's always tuning into you and tuning hopefully into your intuition and saying, how, what's my role here and how do I support this child, knowing that I respect their path and this is the path they're on and it's different from my path.
Yes.
Okay, that could be a really interesting process because I can see where parents, I mean, it was done to me. My
Yeah.
generation was famous for that. This is what you should do. My mother was a little bit different. She did have her idea of what she wanted me to do, but not so much as in her generation, where there were only limited roads that they could take.
Right.
And I think I just recently shared that I learned very late in life that my mother's real path was music. That was her passion,
Wow.
but she never followed it.
Oh.
But with that intuition, encouraging that intuition, is that what will lead them? When you say a path, we know spiritual, but I believe that if you're following your passion, that is a spiritual path.
Mhm.
And it may lead you to something much different. You know how the old rule was you become a lawyer, you become a doctor,
Right.
you become a nurse, a teacher. Those were all respected things to do.
Right.
But intuition, is that's what is important to get a child to grow into being what they are supposed to be, what they
I
were
think
created
so.
to be.
I think so. Teaching them to listen to their joy, teaching them to trust themselves. It doesn't mean that you sometimes don't also teach them to work hard, because some kids need to learn how to do the nitty gritty to manifest their goals,
Mhm.
but always just pointing them back to their inner wisdom, to their authenticity. And, we often just teach kids, if it's fun, get back to work.
Yep.
And, I was blessed because I went to a progressive, crazy 1970s progressive school, where we were all free and open. And so I didn't grow up with that idea that work and play were two different things. I was just blessed because my work was mostly fun. And, but I remember when my kids were little, and my daughter is super smart and one of those people that just loves knowledge. And so I used to buy her these books at the toy store, like math books and reading books before she started school, because she would just eat that stuff up. And she called them learning books, and she loved them because that's just who she is. She got to, first grade, and she wanted nothing to do with those books anymore, because now they were work, and work isn't fun.
Right.
And, I think sometimes we shut that down for kids, and we teach them, don't be having too much fun. You got to go back to your work. And then they forget, to tune into what actually brings them joy and excitement. So, yeah.
Yes.
Awesome explanation of that. Because I can remember being told, you're too big for that. Stop playing.
Oh, I hate that.
You're too big for that. Stop playing. And I think the play is so important. I think
Yes.
play is an open door to discovering your intuition.
Absolutely. And imagination and play are that children naturally do it, but adults too. I teach entire workshops on play.
Do you really?
I did one this summer where
boy.
I really,
we have to talk.
It was so much fun. And just spending the day chilling out, powering down, playing with chalk, playing with all sorts of different things, exploring the land where I did it. Because, that's when we get back in touch with ourselves, is when we power down and we allow ourselves to listen to where we feel drawn, where we feel pulled. That is your intuition. So, and plus it's fun. And we all need more of that light, fun energy in our lives, because it feels good and it makes your spirit sing.
Absolutely. Oh, we must talk.
All right, sure.
Yes.
You just hit a nerve with her.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. I also am very involved in the power of play. It's just so incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And it's something that as adults we let go of.
We do.
We think it's only for children. And so much of the literature out there is all for children. It's just like, okay. You say,
and even children, like you said, at a certain age, we tell children you can't play anymore. And it's such a loss, and it's so sad, because it should always be a part of our lives, and we're all longing for it. Everyone has that longing, right, to rediscover that joy, and we keep doing all these crazy things that are not joy-inducing to find it when it's right here. You already know how to do it.
Yeah. I wish you could talk more about that. The fact that, oh Lord, I thought this was off. So sorry. I wish we had more time to talk about it being right here.
Right.
Because that's the place that people don't look here. They look everywhere else. It's all out there. They can buy it. They can do all kinds of things, but they never look in here and realize that it's free.
Yeah, everything that you need is within you. When people
Right.
come into my office, and a lot of times people will come for an intuitive reading. So they're asking me to tune into my inner wisdom, connect with my guidance, and give them, guidance and what comes through. And I love doing that. And I can sometimes read people and do other things too, but I love doing that. But what I always tell people is this: I'm a conduit for reconnecting you with your own inner wisdom. I don't know anything that you don't know. Or if I do, I mean, I got some degrees and stuff. So I know some stuff, but that's not what I'm talking about. But like when it comes to guidance, when I'm reflecting you back to you, I'm helping you get back in touch with that inner wisdom and that inner knowledge that is within. And that is just what I'm doing. And I always tell people too, don't think that I have the answers or I'm giving you. What I'm doing is I'm awakening something in you, and you have to tune into yourself and say, does this resonate? What fits? What, and usually a lot of it does, because, that's my gift and that's what I do. But I always want to empower my clients to look within, and because at the end of the day, at some point you won't need me anymore. Right. And that's beautiful. I want to leave you with what you've had all along.
All right.
So
If a client wanted to connect with you, what's the process to become to get your services? Because
right.
I'm really loving what I'm hearing.
You're awesome. So I do a lot of different things. In the state of Connecticut, I'm still a licensed counselor. So I do, straight up mental health services, but always with that intuitive twist. And then I also work with people all over the globe remotely doing the more spiritual coaching. And that's where I tune into my intuition and, we'll give guidance to people, tell them, see what comes through in terms of things that they need to work on, some coaching piece as well. And so I do that by video and phone with people everywhere. And then some people also, especially we've been working together a while, like just to get a reading. So I do that as well. I work on people's energy and I will give them a reading on my own and send them a video, a voice file or written notes. And some people love that because they actually, like, I love to talk and be on the phone and have the interaction. But some of my more busy clients like just to get the notes. And sometimes too, that's really helpful because it allows me, when I'm interacting with someone, it's a different kind of exchange. When I'm just tuning into someone's higher self and receiving information, it just puts me in a deeper space. So those are all the different things that I do, and they're all really fun.
Wow. So how do people get in contact with you?
They can find me through my website, which is victoriashawintuitive.com, is probably the best way. I also have a podcast of my own that I just launched, Intuitive Connections. And so I talk a lot about all these topics that we talked about today. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. So yeah, those are a couple options, and very sparsely on YouTube.
Okay, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different twist to you. I mean, we've talked to quite a few coaches, but none that have really focused on intuition, because that's pretty huge. And a lot of times people, they don't even realize that they know they feel it, they have it,
Right.
but they don't know how to describe it.
Right. And I think too, anyone, especially in the healing professions, but I would say anyone who's doing anything really, really well, is tapping into their inner wisdom. Any really good counselor, coach, healer, artist, entrepreneur, like all real wisdom, I believe, comes from the higher self, comes from our innate wisdom. And so we can use our thinking minds to augment that and to communicate what's coming through and to put together the pieces. But the real inspiration and the real healing and the real magic, it comes from your inner wisdom. So the more we can leverage that, the more we can really shine.
I love that.
I love that too.
Thank you guys.
That's beautiful. That is so beautiful. Absolutely. So there's people out there that second guess themselves all the time.
Yeah.
And I think at some point we've all been guilty of that, because we tend to come up with this great idea and then we look at what we don't have. So how do you work with clients in that space?
I mean, I think there's a couple things. One, it's always good to try to get out of your head. So when people come into my office and they're spinning in their thoughts, I sometimes just do visualizations, meditations, energy work, because I can do that too, to teach people how to get out of their head and back into their body, back into their heart, back into your belly. You have a lot of wisdom in your belly, and just become present, because oftentimes that's when our answers come for us. I also, not because I'm a counselor, because actually I became a counselor because this information came through, but sometimes too, we look at what, some of those wounds from childhood, because those are usually the places where we're triggered, the places where we start spinning. And so I'm not a fan of sort of going back and saying, oh, I'm broken, but sometimes when we can get in touch with those parts of ourselves, like our inner childy kind of parts of ourselves that got dinged up in the process of our development, and we can heal those and sit with those, we can really, bring our full selves more to the table as adults and really become less triggered and less spinny in, that mental, emotional washing machine that happens to so many of us.
I like how you said that. Dinged up.
Yeah. Well, we are spiritual beings that I believe are inherently perfect, but life is not humanity is not perfect. So, even in the best of situations, and not everyone who finds their way into my office had the best of situations in their childhood, but even in the very best, there's gonna be little scratches and dings. It's just how it works.
Yeah. It's intergenerational. It's passed down.
Absolutely. There's that as well.
Equipment comes with parenthood.
Absolutely. And again, the world is just, it's prickly.
Yes, it is. And you have to get out there in it. And I think that's why sometimes our parents, I've always said, after many, many years, I've been able to reconcile the fact that my parents did the best they could with the knowledge that they had.
Right.
And so there was a lot of dinging, but their idea was to protect me because they knew I had to get out and walk in the same world that they had to walk in. Mm-hmm. So it was about protection. But what I love now is the same thing that you're saying. More of this knowledge is coming to the fore. More people are becoming aware that there is something more to them than what they've been taught, all of that. And they're reaching for that. And I think that in itself is just such a powerful work that you're doing. Yeah. It's a powerful, powerful, and very necessary work that needs to be done. And in this time that we're living in, while people are all sitting at home,
yes, ma'am,
this is a great message for them to hear. Yeah. So I hope people hear it. And also, as they hear it, not shut down when they hear the word intuition or intuitive, because a lot of people have negative connotations about that. It's not what you think it is. You need to find out and understand what intuition is, because like you said, Victoria, we all have it.
We all have it. And most people have had an experience with it, whether they recognize it or not. I have never, well, I won't say never, but I don't think yet I've ever encountered someone who hasn't had an experience where they knew something and they didn't know how they knew it, and it turned out to be 100% correct. And we all have it, or somebody came into your life at just that right moment when you absolutely needed them, or you couldn't find the answer to a question or a problem, and then boom, it landed in your lap. Those are all examples of, your intuition working for you, and everybody has it. And people who are resistant, that's okay too, because it's still working for them. It's just working a little slower.
Having a harder time getting it.
Yeah, exactly. But it's still there. It's always there.
Yeah, so letting it flow. So let's talk a little bit about that, letting it flow.
Yes.
Because, we all have it, but we don't all let it flow.
Correct.
How do you work with that?
I think, first of all, there's a lot of things. And I actually teach classes on this as well. I find the first thing is to set that intention and to allow the idea that there is this intuition and that you have it and that it's working for you, and to start paying attention to where it's working. because I sometimes, when I teach classes, the first thing I'll have people do is just journal. Start journaling all of your experiences. And every time you could think of, was this my intuition? Was that my intuition? If you think it was, write it down. That actually starts the flow. First of all, it's amazing because you'll start to remember all these crazy things that happened that you totally forgot about, that were your intuition. And also it's just, I always give the analogy of when you are looking for a new car, and say you're looking for a particular model and you're driving down the street and all of a sudden it seems like every third car is that car. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not the case that the car is more common because you're looking for it. What's happening is you're noticing it more because you're paying attention, because you are looking for it. And that's the same way intuition is. It's happening all the time. It's always there. When we set the intention to tune into it, well, we will see it everywhere. And that's how we start that flow of communication. And then the other piece is learning to trust, because intuition is different from the mind, and you don't always get all the answers at once. You don't, your mind wants to control and sort of know and understand and dissect everything, but intuition doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. Intuition, I always say, you get what you get and you don't get upset. It's receptive. You surrender to it and you get what you need to know. And sometimes it doesn't all make sense right away, but you keep following those breadcrumbs. And as you keep following the breadcrumbs of your intuition, it starts to make sense. So there's that trust and surrender piece, and allowing yourself sometimes to have that beginner's mind and not have all the answers, because intuition works best from that place of the unknown, of not knowing.
Wow.
This has been an awesome conversation. I hope our listeners are really paying attention and that they take down your information, because this is a time in which your knowledge is needed to help people come through this. I'm fond of saying now that the way we exited the world is not the way we're going to re-enter. It's going to be very different. And we're going to have to depend on something other than the old norm. And this is the beginning of it. Paying attention to what's going on inside of you.
Yes.
That's going to be the key moving forward in the future.
Right. Yes.
So I'm hoping that people have written down things. I know Ida's going to ask you for your information one more time.
Okay.
Yes.
And also a couple of names of some of the books that you've written.
Oh, yeah.
So my books are pretty old. They're all self-help books for teens and preteens. I have a new one that's about to come out, which is Sleep Strategies for Kids. And I'm really excited about that. That are all interactive activities and visualizations and crafts that families can do to bring more magic to bedtime. Because bedtime, having worked with many kids and have had kids, bedtime can be a really tricky time for families nowadays, and it can also be a magical time, and we want to launch our kids off to sleep in the most beautiful and peaceful way possible, and we also want to give parents a break. So that's the one I'm working on right now, and that should be out pretty soon. And the other ones are really fun too, but they are pretty old at this point.
Okay. But I mean, what's the name of the books that
one is Coping with Sexual Harassment and Gender Bias. One is Best Buds, a guide for friendships for teens, for preteens. It's tweens. Sorry, it's been a while. One is an exercise book for new moms. And the fourth one is a book, I think it's Girl's Guide to Your Change in Bod. So it's a puberty book.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so, yep.
Yes. Oh, do talk about those at some point, because I know we're going to ask you back because you have a new book coming out.
Oh, thanks.
That's an automatic re-invitation.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm excited.
Absolutely.
And then perhaps at the same time, you can give people a little blurb and look into the other books, especially the one on the young girls and their bodies. That's such a huge thing.
Yeah.
It is a huge thing.
I remember that. I wish I had written it then, but because the books that they had out then were just horrible. They didn't tell too much of anything, especially not the emotional piece.
The emotional piece is so important.
Wow. Yeah. So again, how can people connect with you?
They can find me through my website, which is victoriashawintuitive.com. You can find me on Facebook, Victoria Shaw Intuitive Counseling. on Instagram, VF Shaw 1. Let's see what else. I have a new online course on my website if people are interested in activating their intuition. It's a self-paced online class where I walk you through all the different ways that I've been teaching people over the last 10 years to tap into their inner wisdom. Okay. And I think that, and a podcast, Intuitive Connection. And that's available on all the major platforms.
Okay, and when does that air, your podcast?
I'm posting weekly now, and we've been up now, about a month, I think. So, okay. Right? It was a quarantine launch by accident, but, and so that is also a lot of information about intuition and finding your joy. I have a couple episodes up about just how to navigate the times we're experiencing now. And then like you guys, I also have a lot of really awesome guests.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good. All right. Well, you know you're coming back, right?
Oh, I would love to come back. This has been so much fun. I love you guys.
Yeah.
We love you too. This was
great
conversation. And Ruth, you want to tell her what you did? Because when you talked about playing, did you see the joy in her face?
Yeah, I actually have a platform that I'm continuing to develop. But It's called the Power Play Reconnect Experience, and it's something along the same line. The fact that play is so powerful that it can reconnect you to your original authentic self.
Oh, we should talk off camera. I would love to hear more about that. You have such
I would love to talk.
Beautiful light.
That's why when you said that, I almost jumped off my Ida card. It was like, oh, okay, another kindred soul. You know?
Oh, it's beautiful.
But you don't hear many people talking about it, and it's so vital. It's vital. Yeah. I can't wait to talk with you.
Likewise.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. We truly appreciate this conversation. I know our audience really does, especially during these unprecedented times. We're at a place now where we're stuck in the house. Plenty of time to reconnect.
Mm-hmm.
Plenty of time.
And plenty of time to power down, because again, I think one of the benefits of what we're all going through right now is that, especially my friends who are busy, do, this is an opportunity to go inside. Literally, you are inside your house a lot of the time, and to, sit with yourself and get to know your inner landscape a little bit more, and magical things will happen.
Yes, so true. This has been so delightful.
Likewise.
Thank you so much, Victoria.
Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria.
All
very,
right.
very much.
All right.
Word on the street says there's something new at Just Minding My Business Media. You've heard our podcast, Just Minding My Business Radio, that brings news and views you can use. That airs every Thursday at 6 p.m. on iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and Spreaker. Well, now you can watch Just Minding My Business. That's right, Just Minding My Business Media now has a TV presence on Raven International TV Network, broadcast on Roku, Fire, and Apple TV. Your business, through Just Minding My Business Media, has exposure on internet radio, major social media platforms, and now TV, through Just Minding My Business dynamic digital marketing platform. Don't listen to the word on the street. Hear it for yourself. Visit jmb.asistercircle.org to learn how you can take your business, your vision, to the next level. Thank you to the amazing women of A Sister Circle Empowerment Network, ASCEN LLC, and our media partners. Let Just Minding My Business Media promote your business. For information, visit us at jmb.asistercircle.org. That's jmb.asistascircle.org. Voiceovers by RCH VoiceWorks, for when you want to be heard. Call 443-620-4115.
Thank you for tuning in to Just Minding My Business Radio.
I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
We hope you enjoyed the show and appreciate you stopping by. Many blessings to you and yours.